All right, awesome. Well, I'll go ahead and get started. So my name is Justin Chalfant. I'm the founder at Patch My PC. A little background about us before we just jump right into the demo. Now, if you're not familiar with what we do third-party patching and application management for Microsoft Config Manager and Intune as well, which we just released. And we'll be going over what that actually looks like to set up within an environment. So before we get started, I think there's probably about 3 or 4 of my engineers on the chat. So, as questions come up throughout the demo, feel free to paste them in the chat window, or even if you want to kind of chime in too, feel free to come off unmute. But we do have some people in the chat window. They can definitely answer anything that comes up. And then we should certainly have some time after the session as well. So to go ahead and get started, basically what we're going to do here in this demo is actually go through from start to finish what it looks like to set up our product. So that's going to include publishing third-party products to Configuration Manager as a software update, as well as an application, and then also publishing Win32 applications to Intune. So first thing to do, like if this looks interesting to you after watching this demo, you probably want to start off just going to our website and clicking Request Trial, and that's going to give you 30 days full access to the entire catalog, including all features. Once you get that, you can go ahead and download the MSI. So if you go to our download and docs page, you can go ahead and grab the latest MSI, and this is the utility that's going to be used to publish the third-party products to Configuration Manager as well as Microsoft Intune. So it's a basic MSI, it's only a couple megabytes, and really lightweight tool. So if I go and click next here, just kind of your typical installation, the only real option that you're going to get here is we do use the same code base for both our Intune feature as well as Configuration Manager, and you can actually use both of them within the same service. Now, if you want to use Intune only in a standalone mode and you're not using SCCM, the only option in the installer here would be to enable Intune standalone mode. So if you want to do that, that's going to disable some of the prerequisite checks related to WSUS and Configuration Manager. Now, in our case, we're actually going to do all 3 of those configurations, so we'll just leave everything default. Now, the first thing, once you get set up and running here, when you open the tool for the first time, you're going to see the General tab. And that's going to give you 2 options here. You can either enter a URL that you would either get through the 30-day full access trial, or if you want to enable what we call a public trial mode, you can simply check that box. So that would allow you to download the MSI without sending us any information. And then you're going to get limited to just a smaller set of products for evaluation. But if you want the full 30-day trial, you can go and request that, and then that's going to give you access to every single product within our catalog. Now, as far as the installation goes, if you're using this for Configuration Manager, you would want to install this publishing utility on your top-level software update point. So in our case, this is pretty basic. We've got our site server and software update point on the same site system, but if you had a remote site system for your software update point, you would just want to install it on whatever that server is. Now, in the event that you're using Intune only, you do have the ability to install it on Windows 10 client as well. So just keep that in mind. You can do that if you want to. Yeah, and oh yeah, so good comment. So as far as the license code, you guys did call that out. So this will only work in like a specific IP. So don't worry about trying. I wouldn't want you to go copy and try to type out 20 characters just to be let down when you go try to validate it. So don't worry about that. So yeah, so the only prerequisite that we really have is going to be around the WSUS signing certificate. So in the event that you do want to use the software update feature to publish third-party updates to SCCM, we do need to have a certificate that's used. And that's simply used to make sure that your clients trust the third-party updates that are being published from our utility. So this is actually pretty easy. So what we're going to do in our scenario is we're going to choose to generate a self-signed certificate. Now, if you're using PKI, like Active Directory Certificate Services, you do have the ability to import a certificate that you create as a code signing cert from PKI as well. But in our case, just we're going to do a code signing certificate using a self-signed method. So if you go and create a new certificate within our tool, you do get a bit more flexibility as compared to if you just let SCCM generate one. So you can have like a custom subject name, and you can also configure how long it's valid for. So that's going to be how we could generate kind of that prerequisite. Now, within Configuration Manager, there's this new feature in 1806 or newer current branch where you can have SCCM automatically read the certificate that's being used for third-party updates. So once we generated that certificate from our tool, if we come over here and choose to allow Configuration Manager to manage the cert, what's going to happen after we trigger a software update point, it's going to automatically read that WSUS signing certificate that we created within our tool and automatically add it to the Configuration Manager database. So if we look at the WSync Manager log really quick, we can see that it detected there's this new certificate that was added into WSUS, and it's automatically added that into the Configuration Manager database. So what that is essentially going to allow you to do is for that certificate that we generated, it's going to automatically deploy that cert using the SCCM client if you enable this feature. So if we come back in here, we can see that we now have the code signing certificate that we generated, and we can tell that by the subject name and the fact that it's 12 years out for being valid. Now, once that's reading that certificate, under the client settings, what you can do is just come over to your software updates, and then you can enable the option to allow third-party updates on your clients. So what these two new options allow you to do is the certificate can automatically be deployed using the Configuration Manager agent using client settings. You no longer have to worry about having a GPO. So previously, before having it all integrated, it's not really that complex. You would simply export the certificate to a SIR file, and then you would create a GPO to import that. But some of these new enhancements make it quite easy where you don't need to go to like your Active Directory team. You can have everything integrated into Config Manager itself. So that's really all there is as far as being ready to start publishing these updates and applications. So as far as our tool goes, we kind of have three main components here. So we're going to have the Updates tab, we're going to have the Config Manager Apps tab, and the Intune Apps tab. So these all correspond to different products that we can publish in different ways. So the Updates tab, what that's going to do is it's going to allow you to publish third-party software updates into Configuration Manager. So what's going to happen, we can see that we currently only have Microsoft updates. This is going to allow us to start publishing third-party updates into your environment, and they're going to function just like a Microsoft update. So what that means is they could be used to automatically update any outdated versions of third-party products that already exist on your devices. So just like you have your applicability that will show whether or not an update is required, it's going to use all the same scanning mechanisms to determine whether any of your devices have outdated third-party applications. The next thing that we're going to run through is the Config Manager Apps tab. So what this is going to allow you to do is automatically create base applications using the Configuration Manager app model that you can use to deploy products even if they're not already installed. So we're going to automatically create just a normal application that you can then use in Config Manager task sequences or collection deployments. And we can also keep these applications up to date in place so that you can always ensure that you're deploying the latest versions within your task sequences, for example. And then lastly, this is one of our newer features. This is going to be our Intune Apps tab. And what this is going to allow you to do is within Microsoft Intune, you can automatically create and update Win32 applications within your Intune tenant. So we're going to go through and configure all of this and basically have everything ready to go and get some stuff deployed to our clients. So the first thing that I want to cover here in the Updates tab is just the list of products we have. So we're currently at somewhere around 300 and some odd products. Andrew's going to paste the link into the chat window, and you can get the full list here on our website. Now, one thing to note is that if we have a product or if you have a product that we don't support today, we do have a user voice where you can come in here and request different products that you want to see added. So for example, we can come in and look at all the different app requests. And let's say that there's one that's pending that is not shipped. You could come in here and say, I want this app too, and you could vote up on it to get a status for that. If there's something we don't have, you can also submit a new idea. Now, as far as how often we're adding applications, if we jump over to our roadmap, on average, we're probably doing about 5 applications per month. So I know it's a little bit blurry here with the resolution, but any of the dark blue products are new ideas for products from our customers. So that's where you can see that, we ship quite a few of these each month. And this also includes feature requests that we get from our customers as well, as far as adding new applications. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So as far as choosing which products you want to publish, this is very similar to your software update point product selection within your console. So you're going to get a tree view that lists all the different third-party products that we support. Now, since there is a pretty long list and you may not know what's actually applicable within your environment, if you click the database scan icon, what we can do is we can query your configuration manager environment. So what this is going to do, it's going to scan hardware inventory, and it's going to look at all the products that you have installed within your environment that we also support within our catalog. From here, you can come in and select different ones that you want to enable, or you can even enable everything at once if you just want to, query and say, if it's in my environment, I'm going to go ahead and make that patch available. Now, for time's sake, we won't go through and enable all of those. We also have a feature where, let's say that you wanted this scan to happen automatically before each of our automated synchronizations. So we could say if, a product is installed on at least 5 machines, let's enable that as a software update. So you could make sure that, if we add a new product in our catalog, you don't ever have to come back into our tool manually and enable that product if you wanted to ensure that your coverage is automated. This would also take place if, say, there's a product that's only on 3 machines today, but maybe in the future it gets installed on 2 more, and then your threshold is 5, it would automatically enable in that scenario as well. Okay. But before we actually start enabling a couple of these, I do want to cover some of our customizations. So if we right-click on the All Products, there's different configurations that we can apply to customize the way that our updates and applications get installed. So for example, let's say that there's a product or even, a specific product or a vendor where you wanted to automatically close the applications before they install. We can choose the right-click option, and we can recursively apply this at the All Products level to apply to everything if you want. You can apply these right-clicks at the vendor level, or you can also apply them at the product level as well. So you can get as customized as you want as far as any of these actions go. You can also choose to skip the app if it's in use and don't apply the update until the next scan cycle. We can also delete public desktop shortcuts for products like Chrome that might put a public icon on the desktop. We can also disable the self-update feature. So let's say that you wanted to make sure you disable self-updates for products so that you're in control over when those patches get distributed from Config Manager. We can simply do that by having a right-click option. And then the last option here that's pretty helpful is the logging option. So what the logging actually does, this will allow you to automatically create a log file for any of the products that you have selected. So what I'm going to do here is just copy a UNC path. And what we actually will do is we'll enable logging, and then we'll set a backup folder as well. So basically what this is saying is for any of the MSIs or EXEs that are being installed either as an update or an application, I want to automatically add the command line to enable a log for that product. We can also choose a standard folder that we automatically add to the command line of that install. That will be where the vendor's install logs go. We can also enable things like verbose logging, and probably one of the more helpful options is if we detect that an installation failed, meaning it's a non-zero exit code, you can copy only the failed logs to a separate location, like a UNC share, for example, where you could analyze the failures and see, why it didn't complete, rather than just getting a generic 1603 exit code that we're probably all familiar with within ConfigMan. So we did that at the All Products level. So that means that if we come down and enable any other products, they're going to automatically have those right-click options that we applied at the All Products level. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and enable Google Chrome 64-bit, and we're going to go ahead and right-click at the product. Now, once we get to the product level, we do have 3 additional customizations that we can apply at the individual product that are not applicable at the All Products. So the first one's going to be you can add a custom pre or post script. So if you want to customize an update in some way, you can run a PowerShell batch VB, or you can even have an EXE or MSI as a pre or post action before the normal update for that product. You can also add custom command lines. And if it's an MSI, you can add a MST transform file directly to that product's installer. So in this case, just as an example for Google Chrome, we're going to browse out and we're going to choose a post update script that's going to run a PowerShell script that sets the home page for Chrome. So we're basically just setting a reg value that's going to set within the Chrome policy key. So I'll go ahead and select that, and that's going to run after the update applies. So anytime a Chrome update or application applies, it's going to automatically set our homepage to patchmypc.com. Then we're going to jump over and we're going to do Java 8 32-bit. So we'll go ahead and enable that option. We can see that it has all our same right-click options we applied globally. And then for Java, there is one additional option that's specific to Java. What we do for Java is we have a pre-action that's enabled by default. And what this does is it's going to run a pre-action that removes all the old versions of that runtime before the new update applies, because their installer will not automatically handle the removal of old versions. So we want to make sure that by default, you aren't left with duplicate runtimes with older versions. Now, if you wanted to, you can opt out of this script if you needed to. Okay, so that's the software update. So for software updates, we're going to enable Java and Chrome, and then we're going to jump over to our application. So within the Config Manager Apps tab, there's just a few basic settings that you would have to configure here first. One's going to be your SMS provider so that we know how to create applications, where are we talking, what server. We then need a UNC path. So where do you actually want to store the root level of your content? We'll automatically create a vendor folder and then a product folder for all the applications that we create. And then there's a few application options that are just kind of specific to Configuration Manager. Like, do you want to allow the app to be installed in a task sequence? Do you want to allow it to fall back for your boundaries to the site boundary? Just a few various options. Another cool feature that we can do is we can automatically move any applications created from our product to a subfolder. So let's say that you want any app from our tool just to stay organized. We want to put that into this folder called Patch My PC within your SCCM console. We could select that and have them auto move. We can also automatically distribute your content to a DP group. And then lastly, probably one of the bigger options is, how do you want to handle the automatic update of applications that we create? So the default behavior is, whenever there's a new update to an application, we update the application in place. So for example, if we created Chrome version 79, and let's say the next week version 80 came out, if you left the default behavior, we would simply update the content for the previous app, and then we would update it to version 80 and rename it so that it's Chrome version 80. What that allows you to do is make sure that you're always deploying the latest version within your task sequences or collections without having to manually go and reassociate things. So if you want to always deploy the latest, you could just leave the default option. Now, if you do have a bit more change control, where you need to create a new application for each version and not modify the existing, you can choose the bottom drop-down option there. Okay, so as far as this goes, it's the same type of options. You can choose whichever products that you want to enable. We've got all the same kind of right-click options, including some additional ones at the application level. Now, since we've gone through and we've already enabled Chrome and Java for software update publishing, we do have this duplicate icon. So let's say you went through and you enabled a bunch of products to publish as a software update, and you want to duplicate those same products to create as an SCCM application. We can simply duplicate that, including any of the right-click options. So we've automatically enabled Chrome, and it has all the options that we applied at the update product as well. So we've got Chrome and Java now enabled. There's Java. And just for the application piece, we'll go ahead and enable 7-zip as well. Now, within the application right-click menus, we do have a few additional options, about 5 different options that are specific to applications that we did not see in software update. So for example, if you want to set things like the max runtime within the app, you can do that. You can even move individual applications to a separate subfolder in the console if you want to be more specific. And just a variety of other things. Do you want it to be featured in Software Center? Things like that. Go ahead and apply that. So that's the 3 applications that we'll create within SCCM as an application rather than an update. Then we'll jump over to our Intune Apps tab. We're going to automatically enable Intune applications. As far as the options go, there's really only 3 things that you need to get. So you're going to have to get your Intune tenant domain. So you can pull this from your Intune tenant portal. And then you have to create an Azure app registration that's going to give us access to the Graph API within your tenant that we can use for creating and updating applications. We'll include a PDF in the chat window that basically describes step by step what it looks like to go through and create that registration. But we basically pre-created here to save some time. But it only takes about a minute or two to go through and give the correct permissions into there. And then there's a couple of options that determine how you want to handle application updates within Microsoft Intune. So since Intune doesn't natively support supersedence, what we did is we kind of built our own version of supersedence within Intune. The way that it works is you can basically say, if I had a previous application created, let's use that same example of Chrome 79, and then let's say version 80 comes out. What we can do is, let's say that you had version 79 already deployed to all your users. If we detect that it was a previous version created from our product, we can automatically duplicate the assignments to whichever Azure AD groups that you have them deployed to, and then make sure that the new version is automatically deployed to those same groups. And then another option, depending on how you want to do it, you can also choose whether or not you want to automatically remove the assignment for the previous outdated version. So as far as trying to make sure that you're always deploying the latest, this was essentially what we came up with the Intune model, where it's a little bit different than the way that SCCM can handle things. So that's going to be how kind of updates work to those applications. As far as Intune goes, you have a lot of the same options. So let's say that we want to duplicate those same applications for Chrome. But one additional right-click option that we get for Intune is the ability to automatically create assignments for the application. So for example, I'm doing this at the all products level. So let's say that you went through and you enabled 100 different applications for Intune. What you could do after that is you could go in and enable an assignment at the all products level and say that you want to make all these applications available to all users in Company Portal. You could simply come in here with a couple clicks and have them all deployed. You can then click on the group name, and you can even get more customizable, like how long do you want to allow your restarts to be and things like that. But for this example, we're just going to have all our apps become available to the all users. So if we go ahead and jump down, we can see that Google Chrome is automatically created, and it's automatically got the assignment as well, including all those customizations that we applied back at the updates product. For this one, we're also going to go ahead and enable 7-zip. And just to save a little bit of time, we're going to disable Google or Java. So we'll not publish that one to Intune. And then choose apply. So at this point, we're pretty much good to go. So we've got 2 applications ready to publish as a software update, 3 applications to create as an app in SCCM, and then 2 that are going to be created in Microsoft Intune. So if I go ahead and open up our log file, we'll just kind of let that sit on the left side, and we can see everything that's kind of happening in the background. But what I did is I went ahead and manually triggered a sync just to get this running. But by default, we synchronize our catalog every night at 7 p.m. So this is completely configurable, but this is how everything becomes fully automated. Once you perform your initial setup, you don't really have to come back into our tool. All your day-to-day work is either going to be done through SCCM or in the Intune console. We're simply going to just automatically push those into those environments, and then you're going to go through your typical workflow for deploying those. So by default, it's every night at 7 p.m., and you can, of course, change this depending on your needs. So jumping over to the alerts tab, as far as getting notified, like whenever there are any new updates or applications published to any of your environments, we do have email alerts. So you can come in here and you can enable a SMTP email, or one of our newer features, you can also enable a Microsoft Teams webhook. So for example, we can see that we just got notified that we had something happen. So if we go ahead and click on that notification, we can see that we had Google Chrome published. It was a software update that got published to SCCM. If we click here, within that Teams alert within our channel, it also does things like take us directly out to the release notes for that product. So we can go directly out and see like what was affected within that update. We can see things like whether or not it was a critical severity or security classification. And if there are any CVEs associated with that update, we can directly click out and see CVEs from the National Vulnerability Database as well. So this is all happening real time within our environment as things are being published. So we can see that we're currently working on the Java software update. So it's currently publishing Java. So we should see here in a minute, once that publishing completes, we're going to get another Teams notification. There we go. So we just had the Java update, same type of thing. You can go out, click on the release notes. We can see it was a security update, and this one had quite a few CVEs that are also directly clickable. It looks like it's currently creating the 7-zip application within SCCM. There we go, just about done. There we go. So there's our 7-zip application that got created. It just created a new application for Chrome. And then lastly, we should have Java. So these all got created within SCCM as an application. Now, looking back in the log file, we can see that we're now starting to work on Intune. So you can see that we're uploading the Win32 application directly to Intune now. So if we come back into Microsoft Intune and we do a quick refresh, we should see that we now have Google Chrome starting to get processed within Microsoft Intune. So we'll come back to the Intune piece of this. Let's go ahead and jump over to our config man console and let's just see what we have going on. So we can see that we've got some software updates starting to show up. So we've got Java already synchronized in. We should see Chrome probably here in a second. While we're waiting for Chrome to come in, we can also go over and look at our applications. So we now have Chrome and Java automatically created as an app as well. There we go. So within the application themselves, we do fill in a lot of the metadata. So things like keywords, icons, summary, privacy, release notes, all the things that you would see within Software Center if you made the application available. So it's basically ready to go at this point where you could deploy that within your environment. Same thing for Java. And then as far as 7-zip goes, we can see that since we moved 7-zip into a separate subfolder here in our console, any application created for the product 7-zip will automatically be created there. Good question from Ryan. His question was about, can you set security scopes? That is not something we support today. Let me take a quick look. I'm just kind of curious if we've got feedback about it. If we haven't, I don't see anything yet, but that would be a really good idea to post to our ideas portal to basically allow you to set, like as a right-click option, whether you wanted to only create an application within specific security scopes in SCCM so you could delegate it. Surprisingly, we haven't seen that feedback yet within our user voice, which I can definitely see the value there. So I'm kind of surprised that we haven't seen anything about that yet. But that's a great question. Today we don't support it. But if you get a user voice in, I think that it's probably something that we could do relatively quickly, most likely through the provider, since we already have a lot of that knowledge within the code. So back over to the console. Let's go see if that update is done. So now we have both Chrome and Java showing up. So within our environment, now you could of course go through and you could do whatever type of deployments that you want. So if you wanted to manually create software update groups, you could do that. Within our lab, just to save a little bit of time, we did have an automatic deployment rule pre-created. So what happened here is this automatically triggered and it deployed any third-party updates from Patch My PC. So we can see that we have these two updates that meet our criteria. And when that ADR kicked off, it automatically deployed it to 3 different collections. So we have our pilot collection, we have our broad pilot, and then production. So just like you can use ADRs and have all your different staging groups, the third-party patches function just like a Microsoft update with that perspective. So we can come in and choose our collection. We can choose our deadline. We can have all our Software Center, whether or not you want to show notifications. And then same type of thing if you're using maintenance windows or restarts, you could control exactly what that looks like from a software update. So when that kicked off, it automatically downloaded our content into a deployment package. So we're going to make use of all your existing SCCM infrastructure, like your deployment packages, your software update points for scanning. So there's no additional systems that you need to have in place. Everything integrates and ties into the existing technology within your environment. So when that kicked off, it created our update group, and this is now being deployed to those 3 different groups that we have. Now, what I'm going to do is go ahead and deploy the applications to all users. So I'm going to go ahead and right click. And this is just the PowerShell script that's going to deploy those 3 apps that we created to the all users collection so we can see that on the client side. All right, so jumping over to our client, we can see that we have a client that has some outdated applications. So if we come in here and look, we can see that we have Google Chrome version 77, and then we have Java 8 2.21. So we can see that both of these versions are newer, and that's why they're showing up here as a software update. So this would be the update model that would only show up if there's an outdated version installed, is how this is going to work. Now, if I go ahead and open up Google Chrome, we can see that we don't have a custom homepage. So let's go ahead and kick that off. And we can also see that we have this public desktop icon here. So what should happen is that should get deleted, and we should automatically set the homepage. We can also see that within the CCM logs, we automatically created a subfolder based on that right-click option to save our vendor logs into the CCM logs folder. So we can see that we actually have the verbose logging of Chrome getting automatically created within that folder. Now, there is one additional log at the root of CCM logs called the Patch My PC script runner. And what this does, this will show all the update and application installations from our perspective. So for example, we can see that for this update, we started by running the MSI, and we can see all the parameters that we automatically added based on those right-click options. So in our case, as far as the MSI goes, we automatically added the logging parameter as well as the path that was defined in that right-click option. We can also see that since we disabled the software updates, we can see that we set 3 different reg values for Chrome to turn off updates. And then lastly, we ran the post-action PowerShell script that set the Google Chrome homepage. So if we come back over here, we can see the public desktop icon is now deleted. And if we go ahead and open up Chrome, we can see that that homepage is set to patchmypc.com. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and power up our Intune client, and we'll jump over to that to see what that looks like. But while we're waiting for that to power up, if I jump over to my applications, we can see that our 3 applications are also showing up. So I'm going to go ahead and start the installation for 7-zip. So we can see that we don't currently have 7-zip installed. That's one that we're installing here from scratch, just like any other collection deployment that we can do. Now, as far as the installations go for the applications, they also use the exact same Patch My PC script runner. So for here, you can come in and see for 7-zip, we were running their exe installer with the /s parameter, and we also have all the exit codes that would get logged out there in case you ever had any issues. We also support an uninstall type. So same type of concept here. We can see that if we run the uninstall, the same script runner component, we can also see how it performed the uninstall. So in this case, it was an exe, and it automatically found the uninstall binary that we needed to run for that exe version of 7-zip, as well as the silent command line that we needed, even if it's an exe. So, this takes a little bit more work on our end to make this work, where MSIs are pretty simple, where you can just add the product code. We can also work with the vast majority of EXEs if they support a silent uninstall command. So in addition to just installing these products, you can also deploy these applications as an uninstall if needed. Okay, so jumping over to our Intune client, it looks like we did in fact get policy, so that's good. Sometimes this can be a little bit delayed. So we can see that we don't currently have any of these products installed. So let's go ahead and kick this off. Sometimes Intune takes a little bit, so we'll just leave this and just see if we're able to get it done before the demo's done. But jumping back over to the server side while we wait for that, we'll cover some of the reporting options that we have available. Good question. So we had a question about the repair command. So we do populate repair if it's an MSI. So for example, if we come over to the Google Chrome deployment type, you can see that we do automatically populate the repair command if it's MSI as well. Now we don't populate the repair command for an EXE. We've been debating whether or not we might do that. Essentially, I think if we enable the repair for a EXE installer, we would probably just basically run the same EXE install again, since that's generally how you would repair an EXE if it allows it to like overwrite the existing one as a repair. But if it's an MSI, we will automatically populate the repair. Okay, so jumping back over to our server, as far as reporting goes, let's jump into some of the software update compliance reports that would be applicable in a configuration manager software update setup. So these are reports that we have available for free. So this was actually some dashboards that were originally created by a Microsoft consultant, and he has a blog post about, basically the process for creating custom reports. So we basically took these, we've added some newer operating systems like Windows 10 and Windows Server 2016 and 19 that weren't there at the time. And we also created a installer that will automatically install these SSRS dashboards into your environment. So these are actually free regardless of whether you're a customer. And you can simply come into the Advanced tab and run the installer. And what that will do is automatically change all the URLs to match your SQL reporting server as well as your site code so that all the reports are ready to go and any of the interactive dashboards will click in and work within your environment. So basically within these dashboards, you just get a lot of different compliance graphs about how you're trending within your environment, right? So let's say that you wanted to break into the month of March. We can see that we're 90% compliant for patches released in March. And this current dashboard includes both third-party updates as well as Microsoft updates. So for example, if we look at this report for updates in March, we can see that, we're missing a security update for Chrome. This was one that was released 2 days ago, so it hasn't hit the deadline yet in my environment. But we can see if we wanted to click in on that, depending on how deep you drill in, we might take you into some of the native SCCM compliance reports. So where you could, for example, see the 3 devices that are missing that specific security update. So it's pretty easy from the dashboard to kind of break in and see things about different workstations, different servers, different collections, and see kind of where you're at as far as compliance goes. But in addition to our SSRS dashboards, any of the free dashboards that you might be using today will also work perfectly fine within Configuration Manager because it uses the same reporting mechanism that Microsoft updates use. So for example, this is the free Microsoft Power BI dashboard. And if we drill into the updates compliance piece of this, we can see that we see all the different third-party updates as well as Microsoft updates, and you can do all the same filters there as well. So if you're using any of the dashboards out there that are free, it will also report in on the third-party updates. And then of course, if you're using any of the native Configuration Manager reports, that will also work just fine as well. So all the reporting is exactly the same as what you would be accustomed to within your environment. So we can also see that our Intune app, it looks like just completed for Google Chrome. There we go. Now let's go ahead and run Google Chrome. Now what should happen, since we had all the right-click options enabled, we can see even for the initial deployment of Google Chrome through Intune, we automatically set the home page, we automatically disabled self-updates, we deleted the public desktop shortcut, which in my case, I think it might have done it for the per user desktop. Maybe that's why it's still there. And then we also have log files within Microsoft Intune as well. So within program data, so it doesn't live in CCM logs in Intune, it lives in program data patch my PC Intune logs. So it's basically just the same place that you would kind of see the Intune management logs. It's all in program data. So within here, we have the same concept that applies. So we can see that same script runner log that we had within SCCM. So we can see all the same things that it's doing, where it's doing things like setting the home page, disabling updates, deleting shortcuts, and it uses all the same customizations that you can do for updates and apps are also available within Microsoft Intune. But as far as that goes, that's really all it is. So we pretty much went through the whole setup about 30 minutes. We've got applications created in Config Manager. We have software updates deployed. We have Intune applications created. I'm not sure if I actually went into the Intune apps. Oh, I don't think I did. So let's go ahead and refresh that. And now we can see that Chrome and 7-Zip are both in Intune. And since we had the right click to auto create the assignment, we can see that they were automatically deployed. And then same type of thing here. If we look at properties, we're gonna have all the icon info, the URLs, the descriptions, just the nice stuff that we could see back on our Intune client, where if we go into Software Center, you know, they're gonna have a nice experience. You can make this show up with all these applications and have them all ready to go and looking really nice. So that's all available. I think Notepad is just showing as failed just because we basically revert these back to a snapshot. So it thought it was installed, but then it became uninstalled. So then like it does an evaluation again. So we can kick that off, but that's why that's showing up, because basically we take it back to a clean state where Intune thinks it's already installed, but when the machine comes back in, it's not there. So I think that's what's going on with that message. But yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much it as far as getting everything set up and running. The only other thing I'll talk about is pricing, and then we'll do Q&A. So if we come over to our website, if you click on request quote, this is where you can see our pricing information. So what I showed you today is okay. So what I showed you today would be Enterprise Plus. So what Enterprise Plus does, that includes basically every feature that we have. So that's going to include software updates for SCCM. That's going to include applications for SCCM, as well as applications for Microsoft Intune. So that's going to be $3.50 per year per device. So, you know, if you had 1,000 devices, it'd be about $3,500 per year. Now, if you only care about software updates, so you only want to publish third-party updates to SCCM, that's going to be $2 per device a year. And then if you only care about Win32 applications in Intune, it's 2.5 a year. But yeah, good question, Ryan. So no, we do not make you come in and give you all your information. So that's one thing that we don't do. Basically, we'll tell you what it is, and so you have a good idea. You don't have to come and get, you know, actually we don't even, the only email you would ever get, even if you do request a quote, would just be the quote email. So I mean, it's not like even if you gave us your info, like anything would really happen, like getting spammed or anything like that. But as far as discounts go, that does come up quite a bit. So under the FAQ page, we do have some discounts for nonprofit and education as well. So if you're in any of those criterias, you could potentially get a discount too to help out with things like that. But that's pretty much it. I think that covers just about everything as far as the setup goes. So any other questions, just feel free to either come off mute or I'll bring the chat window over here in the share as well, and we can answer anything on the chat that you have for us too. Okay. I'm not seeing much coming in the chat. Any questions out there? You can either unmute yourself or paste something in the chat.
I just would like to make a comment, Justin. I got to tell you, that was one of the better demos I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the demo gods were with me today, so I mean that's always a good day.
And we do have a question in there from Paul Vandenberg. He wants to know how many products are currently supported.
Yeah, that's a good question. So to be honest, I have no idea. So from a product perspective, I mean, we could go find out here in about a second. Let's go ahead and copy them all. It's a lot. From a product perspective, I'd say we're less interested in like trying to say, oh, we have X number of products, just because it's always changing. What I'm more interested in is if we don't have a product that you need, you have a avenue to get to us and go through and get requests. So as far as products go, it looks like there's somewhere around 212. Now, the way that we have our products is one product might contain different installations. So for example, if we go over to 7-Zip, you know, we've got a 32 and 64-bit. So if you were to go through, actually, let's jump over. Actually, let me stop my screen share for a second. I'm not sure if there's anything on the screen that might come up that might be some code or something on the back end. But let me jump over to one of our other labs. And it's basically got, okay, yeah, let me close a few things here.
And we did have one person say they had an extreme case of microphone envy.
Oh yeah, you like that mic stand kind of hanging out there? All right, so here we are. So this is kind of one of our production labs that we have pretty much everything published in. So as far as like how the products would translate, let's go ahead and look at vendor is patch my PC. Actually, let's go over to the applications. So if we look at the applications, this will probably give you a better idea. So if we look in the patch my PC folder, I think this is where most of our apps are. A few of these might be old. I feel like this number is a little high, but I think as far as like active apps go, there's probably somewhere around 350 for like different iterations. So for example, one product might have, you know, different major versions if it's paid. Same thing for 7-Zip. It might have different kind of flavors of that app. So I think if you were to have everything in here, there's probably somewhere around, actually, let's run a synchronization. I can tell you how many updates. I can tell you specifically how many like updates we have in the catalog by just looking at a line in this log file. There we go. So 389, we have 389 like basically specific updates or things that could be applicable depending on what you have enabled. Yep. Cool. Let's jump over and see if we have any other questions while that was going on. Okay, nothing else. Any other questions before we hand it back over? All right, Greg, do you want to take over? Looks like that's just about it. Thanks everyone for joining, and thanks for having me, everyone running the user group.
Yep, thank you, Justin. JJ, you there?